Hi, everybody. My name is Chelsea, aka Sunspren. Welcome back. It's been a while. Today we are talking about Wind and Truth. Yes, finally, right? Finally, we've waited so long. Um, Spoilers before we begin for everything Cosmere, especially Stormlight Archive, every single book, including the new book, Book 5, Wind and Truth. Sunlit Man, probably Mistborn, maybe a little more than that, but definitely those, probably a little more than that, some more breaker stuff. Anyway, full Cosmere spoilers, and without further ado, I really want to give you my review. I'm thrilled. I got the book Thursday at lunchtime because I heard it was on sale at Target early when it wasn't supposed to be released till Friday. So I ran over there and grabbed it and started plowing through that book. I finished it Monday evening, and I had a couple of days to think about it. Today is Friday the 13th, and I've been jotting down some notes about character arcs and things I wanted to talk about. Um, and I will hit Dalinar last. In fact, I'll do all the other characters. We'll start talking about plot, and then I'll involve Dalinar because I think that's kind of how that needs to go. Um, I just want to, before I even get into any of this, acknowledge the awesomeness that is Brando Sando, right? Um, this is a monumental work. Huge achievement to wrap up 5 books in a really invigorating way, losing none of the steam, right? Just in fact gaining steam. This thing was a thriller. It was a breakneck pace, and I just enjoyed every second of it. I did read the preview chapters when they were coming out in Reactor Mag, so I kind of got my head start, right? I had about 200 pages in before I officially got the book Thursday. So my experience might be a little off. Not having, I mean, having read the 1100 pages like all together in like 4 days, and the rest of them sort of spread out over weeks to think about. So keep that in mind. But anyway, here are my thoughts after just praising him and saying, this is really good stuff. This is excellent fantasy. It's so layered and so fun. And this is hard work. Like, I'm going to make some criticisms later in this video about the story, about plotting or this or that, what I thought worked, what I thought didn't, what I liked, what I didn't. But it doesn't, like, it matters, but it doesn't matter that much because this guy's a genius. He's doing a wonderful job. Not just engaging with the fandom, but keeping things relevant and creating something that is not just copy paste of Tolkien or copy paste of Grimdark or whatever. He's just really changing the game in so many ways and pushing the boundaries of uh what a person can do when they have like their family and friends and Dragonsteel and all the conventions and all of that centered around one author, and I think it's really cool. So anyway, that's statement up front. Let's get into the text. Oh, so first and foremost, Kaladin, right? Look, look, my sanity is intact, right? That's Jesus. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you. Oh gosh, so good. Um, in a way, Kaladin's story in this book is the trickiest it's ever been. He's always been a very straightforward character. I think he's been a lot of people's touchstone, main favorite character for a very long time. And Brandon pulls some bold stuff here, very bold, to take this character in the direction of helping others in a totally different way and removing him from, you know, protagonist duty, essentially. Uh, which is bold. It's hard too because I think a lot of people liked Kaladin just the way he was. And now that we're getting therapy Cal, this is a little different. It's going to be different, and we were foreshadowed that it was going to be different. Um, Zeth and Cal, their interactions were believable. They were funny, hysterical. Um, the contrast between Syl and Ox, I thought was really good too. We'll talk about Syl, I guess, later. Kaladin's, and I know I'm bouncing around. In fact, I started at the end. I'm gonna work my way back to the beginning. Whatever. Kaladin saying goodbye to Bridge 4 is one of the moments that made me tear up. I got teary. It's hard to have him say goodbye to people who I knew, probably some of whom weren't going to make it and some might. Uh it's a real end of an era for him and for them. And I hated that. At the same time, I knew what was coming. Like, either he's going to die or something's going to change, or he wouldn't have had that long, goodbye stuff. Let's see. We always ship Kaladin with happiness, and for once we finally got to see it. How special was that, right? Um, him and the flute. I will put a little feather in my cap for that one. I did predict the flute was going to be important. It wasn't like it was that hard to guess, but I specifically said it would be used for therapy purposes, for telling stories and making people see things. And I was mostly right, not quite on the nose, perfect. But I did know he was going to be repeating probably one of Whit's stories, and he did. Wondersail. It was so awesome to hear him tell that story to Nail, the person who needed to hear it the most. I love it. Um, just that was an amazing payoff for all of that, especially since we know Nail really well. We know Nail a lot better than we know Ishar. And just based on Edge Dancer, and Nail's just been in and out of the story for a lot longer. So I thought that payoff was really great. Um, Obviously, I'm just glad that Kaladin is still in this story for the back half. That's what I wanted to hear, even though it's not going to be the way we expected necessarily. I feel genuinely awful for the people at Urithiru and everybody who's going to think that Kaladin is dead uh for quite a while, apparently, given time dilation shenanigans and all of that. I don't know. That's Oh, anyway, I feel like the wind, capital W, kind of came out of nowhere. The wind, the stone, the night. Okay, yes, they've been there the whole time. The rocks, of course, have been there the whole time. See Christian Kremling and Jimmy Stormblast's Lost in Roshar podcast for more on stones and rocks. But something about that seemed, it didn't come out of nowhere, but it didn't have, it's not really explained. In fact, it's still not really explained. It's half explained, kind of like the old magic. Okay, that's the old magic then, right? Okay. Some things I liked just to be vague. This is like halfway between vague and explained, and it throws me a little bit. Hopefully that'll be explained in the back half. Um, what else can I say about Kaladin? Kaladin dancing with Syl was lovely, although I hate Silladin, and it's coming. Now we know it's coming. I am disappointed in that. I don't want that to happen. I understand now that Kaladin is a herald. That's gonna be, it puts them on um even footing with one another in a way that they don't have now. Their power dynamic will shift, and he'll be more Spren like, and she'll be more, I guess, I don't know. I still don't like it. Even if you equalize them completely, I don't like it. There's something about their relationship, I've never seen it as romantic. Um, there was that really weird Chol joke early. That was terrible. That was just terrible early in the book. Syl was not funny this time around. She just was not. And I think because they're in a different place, I still like their relationship, and I think it's great for Zeth and Ox. I'm gonna call him Ox too, because I don't want to call him by his 1212 whatever name numbers. Um, Zeth and Ox needed to see Kaladin and Syl's relationship and how they are free and open with one another and care about one another and is genuine and they bring each other genuine joy. I just never sensed attraction from either of them. I never saw that, and when they hint at it with Kaladin and Syl, it throws me. But neither here nor there. It's coming, so we might as well get used to it now. And it was cute. I'll give him that. It was the moments when he's dancing with her, I thought was just lovely, beautiful to see him so happy, finally, after all this time. And I'm just gonna we'll talk about the thing that is tricky with him, right? Which is going to be a problem. It's the therapy speak. I've seen it from a lot of people on Reddit, a lot of fans, a lot of diehard fans are really not happy with how direct, how explicit that language is in this book, and it takes people out of it, and it took me out of it. Look, I poured through this book. I was devoted to it, and I knew some of that was going to be hard to handle. I mean, when you're telling a story about mental health, it's going to be hard to avoid the jargon, particularly when you finally have a character who's trying to actively do something about the disaster that is these heralds and friends' mental health. Someone has to find words for it. But when you hear them talk about trauma and when you hear him mention things that are just, it doesn't sound real. It doesn't sound like it's coming from Kaladin. And I think that's even more important, is that we have two separate problems, right, that kind of converge. One is the language itself doesn't really seem like it belongs on Roshar in this particular time. It is direct. It is not like it was earlier when we dealt with Shallan's multiple personalities, but we never called it multiple personality disorder, right? We just saw Vale and she described her feelings, and we had to gather that she has these personalities within her and she switches and all that kind of stuff. We didn't have to be told that, Renarin is autistic. We didn't have the word autism to understand what's going on with Renarin. And you don't really want those because it takes you out of the fantasy setting. Like, we can believe that these people are, I can believe that these people are the way they are. They have these issues, Dalinar and his grief and his addictions and things like that. But there comes a point where it starts to sound like an AA meeting or a group therapy session in earnest, and you start going, no, I don't like that, and it doesn't feel right. So that's one problem, just the language itself starting to become more direct. Like I said, one example really stuck out to me was like trauma, and there was another one about, and I get that the Kaladin's a surgeon, traumatic experience. Maybe I'm just being a little critical of that for no reason. But it's just much more direct. I know I'm not the only person because lots of people on Reddit were not happy. Some, it said, just ruined it for them. It did not ruin it for me, but it did burst the reality bubble sometimes, and I just don't care for that. It's so heavy-handed, and I think it can be done without any of that. That's the problem one. Problem two that converges with that is that Kaladin as a character has finally begun to understand his own feelings. Let's not pretend he understands everyone else's, because he's never had some like magic empathic ability to just really drill down into people's psyche in like 2 seconds. And with Bridge 4, it was different because he was living the same experience they were. The same experience, not just being told about it and extrapolating or like inferring things, but really actually living it, right? And another contrast, in this very book, we have Dalinar, who actually lives, he sees what's going on through Honor's perspective, through this perspective, through that perspective, Tanavast, I mean, whatever. That's different because you're seeing it from them. You're witnessing the history. You're not just listening to someone tell you about it. Those are totally different things. And yes, I know the visions aren't perfect. They're imperfect and they're whatever, but those experiences are very different. And Kaladin just would not, it's not really believable that he would just be like, hey, working with Zeth, I can understand that because Zeth is very similar to him. In fact, when they fought, that was kind of the whole thing. A Windrunner with who is a Radiant and a person with a Windrunner honor blade skill sets are similar. Um, their orders, while being opposed, while we have one that represents the letter of the law and one that represents the intent, you know, of the goodness of rules and the upholding goodness. Since you have those in conflict with one another, but they're still so closely related, right? I don't think, and Kaladin and and Nail I can even get to. I can even kind of understand because it's not really Kaladin that helps Nail, it's the wind. It's the flute, it's the story that Wit told him. So really it's a story that Wit knew that someone was going to need to hear, kind of, anyway, about who's ultimately responsible for things, despite your hiding behind the law. But that point has probably been made to Nail before, and he didn't get it then. So the wind and the flute and all that were majorly helpful, is what I'm trying to say. His effect on Ishar is completely inexplicable, other than the oaths being broke or the ideals being sworn right there. I guess I can buy that the results happen the way they did. But I don't really buy that Kaladin should be able to use this jargon and be like walking around trying to fix people. It's, even if that's the quest he's been sent on, it doesn't feel like it fits on him yet, I guess is what I'm saying. So maybe he's just in that transitional zone where he's going from one purpose to another. And this is the book where it's like, oh, it's a little bit awkward. Like, as soon as he makes the decision to become a herald, I was like, yeah, see, that makes sense. That's who Kaladin is. Kaladin is the person who will make the sacrifice for everyone else and who will do what has to be done. He will fight, he will continue to do the thing. And even if, why can't you have both? I guess is what I'm saying. Kaladin doesn't need to just lay down the spear. Now, maybe mentally he does, but for the sake of the story, that would be a terrible place to leave Kaladin. Well, he's going to give up the spear now, whatever. Don't tell me that you didn't start laughing and like cheering whenever he said his famous line again, honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. Um, I was cheering again. Yeah, even though that was even a little bit silly, right? Because it's almost, now it's going to be like a superhero catchphrase for him. But I loved it. I ate it up. Um, it's the therapy stuff is trite, and Brandon knows it. Um, because he inserted that line specifically with the word trite and tried to make that into like a, I know it's trite, but human philosophy, good human philosophy. The philosophy of goodness is trite because we all know that it's true on some level. And that's what makes it kind of cringe. And I'm like, yes and no, because it can be done in a way that's not overbearing. And when it's done in an overbearing way, people are going to respond like, ooh, that's a little bit hokey. Um, love is not hokey in and of itself, and neither is like helping people feel better about themselves or helping them come to a different conclusion about themselves, but helping like two or three people in succession when you just barely got over yourself and you're not really an empathetic person. I love Kaladin, but to the plight of the Light Eyes, yes, he's empathetic, always. To the plight of, the person he's trying to save, a victim of a very obvious, injustice, yes. to random people that just have problems that have been in totally different scenarios, I've never seen him be empathetic to those people. And he's trying, good for him. But it is trite and it comes across that way. So that's a criticism that I have. I think it could have been done. The same things could have happened with less therapy language, a little less of Kaladin like appearing to really know what he's doing, um, and a little less effectiveness, maybe, and it would have been a little more realistic. Um, the the entity for whom I think therapy was critical is actually not any of those people. I feel like someone else could have told that story to nail, somebody else could have whatever, but Nightblood. Nightblood, you're not a thing. Unfreaking believable. I did not see that coming. I was floored by that. Nightblood was amazing. Stole the show a lot. Um, let's see. I've got lots of notes about the therapy thing. Harold's need the therapy for sure, but I'm not sure I want to read 1,300 more pages about therapy, in the next back half. Anyway, those are, and I feel joy. I feel joy about the whole Kaladin arc, thank God. All right, let's see. We're gonna go to Shallan. Shallan. She's pretty obviously pregnant, right? That's like pretty obvious now. Creation sprint in the shower, right? Seems to be, it's just pretty obvious, honestly. And I guess she needs a new challenge since she's not gonna have, not gonna be on Roshar, so she's gonna have her baby somewhere else, I guess, and I guess be on her own, single mom in it. Chana theory confirmed. That's excellent. I'm sure that Mr. Kremling of the Lost in Roshar group will be very excited. I almost wish I hadn't encountered the fan theories for it because I think it would have been a better reveal if I had just been surprised. I would have maybe figured out, oh, red-headed Harold in the beginning of this book when they mentioned it 2 or 3 times and put the pieces together. But I already knew, and I didn't put it together, somebody else did. So, but Shallan forgiving her mom, that also made me teary, you know. I had, I mean, nothing like that with my mom, obviously, but God, I hope not. But anyway, it was lovely. It was well written, nuanced, sad, sweet, all of that. Um, and just to forgive somebody for she was nuts, just like the other Heralds. This one was nuts and wanting to have a family at the same time. Uh, Death of Mraize I've got on here. It was okay, predictable. I think it was all right. Yatel as formless, that was stupid. Sorry, didn't like that. I don't get it. I don't understand how Shallan could not realize that someone standing right there is not a protrusion of her self into something, but in fact a person disguised as formless. That's just weird to me and don't get it. Um I get the setup, but I didn't buy that at all. I thought that was strange. I get that she can shut off her personalities, but the fact that she's healed and all this stuff and she still just totally accepts, oh yeah, sure, that thing's totally me. I mean, you show up in a random, could someone have been pretending to be Testament and she'd be like, yeah, okay. No, it just doesn't, I don't like it. But Shallan overall is a lovely character and she's had a great 5 books. I'm devastated for her that she's stuck in Shadesmar. I was really hoping she'd be going world hopping of her own accord, not because she has no damn choice at all. I mean, wow. She's resourceful and she's the toughest, probably mentally, of some of the Radiants in terms of, well, maybe that's a terrible thing to say. I take it back. She is adaptable, very adaptable. She'll do fine, but wow, whew, that's gonna be awful. I feel so sorry that Adolin is most likely going to miss everything. I guess unless she's going to contact that Seon. I'm sure they'll speak and maybe see each other, but geez. I mean, she may not want to be on Roshar, sans Stormlight. All right. Anyway, Adolin shines in this book. He's amazing. Finally, a regular person making a massive difference. Discussing oaths versus promises, and I think that's a very nuanced conversation that needed to happen in these stories. Just super important. Maya has toppled Syl as the best spren as of this book. Look, Sylphrena was wonderful for books like 1 through 4, but Maya stole book 5 right out from under Syl. I mean, that Aelin, were you a slut? Amazing. I was rolling laughing. And she's a true soldier. And she's a companion to him. And the funny thing is, like, if we were going to ship a Spren and a human, it would totally be Maya Aelin. They have the chemistry. It's not Kaladin Syl. At least not for me. Anyway, and of course I would not actually ship Aelin and Maya. I think that's terrible, but they have wonderful chemistry. It's natural. They seem interested in one another. They don't want to be like the same person. They don't want to, I don't know, they're not trying to therapy one another. They're trying to experience one another. And they're not always going to agree 100%, but they're, cool. They're cool together. I love it. Adolin coaching Yanagong in the game as well as in life. Wonderful. Just spectacular for Adolin to realize he's a leader of men and a damn good leader of men, not just Dalinar's son, who happens to be the prince, high prince or whatever now. I'm just thrilled for him. He deserved that. That was a hard won understanding that he came to with himself, that he's not useless because he doesn't have powers. He's not useless. He's not a spoiled brat. He can do things. And it matters. It's not, it's about futility, the futility of being a regular human in this planet, and coming to grips with it and acknowledging that it's bothered him, and that it's bothered him that his father killed his mother, and it's bothered him. Like, these things are bothering him. And even though he's not having a life like a complete psychotic break like some people in this series, he is angry and frustrated by it. But he just has this ability to pick himself up and carry on, and really, even though he's fighting and he's clearly physically processing some of it, some of the pain, some of the anger, some of the frustration, he also just has this ability to push through. I mean, who loses like a foot, like a part of a leg, and it's like, well, guess that's done. I'll just wait for the Stormlight, and when there's no more Stormlight, well, that's not going to heal. Damn. Anyway, and just proceed on to the next thing. I'm not saying it's the healthiest way to cope, but it is. He's gained respect. He's earned respect as a character. He's not just a himbo, right? I love it. And it's going to be more important than ever. With no Stormlight, you're not going to look to Radiance anymore for the answers. You're going to look to somebody who's resourceful, who understands what normal people are capable of doing. Yeah, I'm just so excited by that. I think that's going to be a wonderful back half story. And I do think it's sad that Adolin never got to see Dalinar again, right? After all this, he wanted to see him. That finally got him through. I want to see him again. I want to not just forgive him, but I do want to see him again, And then right when he finally realizes kind of that it's not an unpassable bridge, Dalinar's gone. Oh, that hurt me. I don't know how much it hurt Adolin, but ugh. Now the one-legged fight, while well, phenomenal, right? Great writing. Was it the most realistic? No. It wasn't. I don't really believe that a full shard bearer, even the Adolin, could go toe to toe that long before Adolin actually got the, the help of the Deadeyes, and then that armor. Not sure I buy that, but Adolin's Adolin, and rule of cool sometimes rules, so I'll allow it. We're gonna talk about Yasna. I think a lot of people will be upset and disappointed with Yasna's stuff, her scenes in this. I don't know that it's the fault of Yasna as a character so much as it is the situation that she was put in, the specifics of it. Disappointment was headed her way because she started out so high, right? She's always been riding up here, and of course she's got to dip so that she can be a character who builds herself back up for the back half. I am sorry it happened the way it happened. I feel like she got cheated a little bit by, not just by Fen, but by that circumstance. Taravangian just played dirty. Is Yasna's philosophy 100% great? No, never has been. But is it so flawed that that's why she lost? Not really. She lost because Taravangian, nobody wants to find out that somebody may or may not have wanted to have them killed. Fen's a merchant. She speaks the merchant language. She could see the writing on the wall. And I feel like it just could have been done differently. They didn't have to hurt Yasna this much. But he did. And I guess this is, the philosophy duel was too structured, right? It's a silly scenario, to be honest. And it's even admitted kind of in the scene that, well, you didn't even ask for any of the merchants to be here, the merchant guild or whatever. The whole setup was just very, very rigid, and it excluded a lot of other factors. It was a duel without a philosophical duel without a lot of context. I don't understand how Ben kind of arrived at the conclusion that the god of hatred, ancient god of hatred, is really going to help you or your people long term. Like, gods don't think the way humans do. So yes, Yasna has human foibles. Gods have god foibles. Now, which one do you really want to interact with? Do you want to deal with the person you know, the Yasna who's actually tried to help you, the people who seem to kind of care and whatever? Or do you want to deal with the god of like passion, wrath, and hate, who's telling you he's bound by an oath today, and then we'll find a way to worm out of it with the same way he's worming out of this right now. Anyway, that was kind of dumb, but it's not that that I think Brandon's did it incorrectly. Maybe he did, but that was something about that was off. Maybe I'm not 100% why, but it was just weird. It kind of seems like Yasna should have been the one to suggest that Odium be released. And that everybody, like the way Dalinar ultimately does, but everybody react against Yasna and say, no, 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 you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. Because I feel like that's the kind of thinking that Yasna does. It's like, let's examine all the possibilities, the ones nobody wants to think about. I want to think about those. And I think that's part of her process, and always has been. It would have just been really synchronous with her character, but that's not how it went down. Everyone has a blind spot. Everyone has a blind spot. And it's sad to see her relationship with Wit come to an end, because early in the book I was like, oh, that's kind of sweet. I liked seeing Wit have someone he could confide in, talk to, and flirt with. And even though Yasna's kind of like, I understand it, but it's kind of a shame, because having them in the same spot meant we got Wit a lot more often. All right, let's see. Switching to Wit for a minute. It was awesome to see him in full all magics mode very early on. Just all the different magics of the Cosmere in one scene. Cool, so cool in a Stormlight book. He's like the chief plot facilitator, it seems like these days. It was a wonderful story that he told Dalinar before Dalinar faced Odium about not being able to manipulate everything all the time. You think you've got a scenario fixed, sometimes it just goes sideways and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not the environment, it's just people, and people are gonna people. I think Yasna could have really used that story. And that he's not always right. Wit's not always gonna have the right answer. Sometimes there's not a right answer. And I love that he's not selling. Wit doesn't sell out Roshar. I was always really worried that we were gonna get a Littlefinger moment in here and it was gonna be Wit. Glad it wasn't. Now, when he passed the Dawn Shard to Sigil, I was like, oh my God. I don't know why I didn't think that was coming, but I read Sunlit Men already, and I just, as soon as Whitney's like, Sigil, I need your help, I'm like, oh God, here it is. Wow. Okay, they are going to show us right now how that happens. And I still remember in Sunlit Man pretty distinctly that Wit apologizes to Sigil for Alethkar, specifically Alethkar. What happened there? I'm not sure we know what happened in Alethkar already that was Wit's fault yet. Anyway, waiting to find out there. Speaking of Sigil, I'm so glad he had his moment. You know, he really stepped up and became leader of the Windrunners. I was devastated when he lost Leighton, devastated when he had to break his bond with Vienta. That was so sad. I mean, I'm amazed that I could feel this much for a friend that I really didn't know that much about until this book. I mean, I didn't know her that well, but now I'm just like, wow, that's terrible. And that she didn't want to join him when he went to and it was the only way. You know, it preserved her. The only thing he could do. And I respect that because he sacrificed his happiness for her. His personal comfort, his joy, hers too, yes, but I mean, like, just that connection to give it up so that she could endure in any form, in some form. It was lovely, good foreshadowing, but also just sad and unlovely. What a man, what a man Sigil has become over the course of the story. Kind of in the background sometimes, or secondary to Cal, but not anymore. Not anymore. I am glad that someone finally feels the extent of Kaladin's pain, just a smidge, right? All those years where Kaladin was building Bridge 4, losing people, you know, pep talking people and planning only to have it go to shit. It's, you know, to see Sigil really say, wow, this is how he felt all the time. I was like, that's got to be so. I wish Kaladin could have a conversation with him now because they could probably look each other in the eye and Sig could really say, no, I feel you, man. You know, wow. Oh, all right. Switching to Navani. She's back to being like a side character now, which I'm totally fine with compared to Dalinar and everybody. That's fine. No problems with that because she'll have more to do as one of the only bondsmiths who has a brain in the next book. Now that she's crystallized, poor Yasna. God almighty. Yasna's been through some shit. Navani and the sibling are plotting, I guess, to make sure that they are okay to endure. I guess this crystallization thing protects them, but also sustains the tower. So that's cool. If y'all will give me 1 second, I'm gonna go let my dog out because he's pawing at me, and I shall return momentarily. Come on, come on, Seth. Come on. Okay, sorry about that. Trying to get an elderly dog to go outside without you is really difficult sometimes, even though he's fine. All right, anyway, so who's next? L. L was way cooler than I expected in terms of temperament and in terms of like who he is and his thought processes. We didn't get enough of him though. That's all I have to say about him. Taravangian, one of the best, most compelling villains of all time. He's just awful, but also in unexpected ways. We don't have a mustache twirling villain, but sometimes we do. Sometimes he does that. But sometimes he shows up old manny, and sometimes he shows up like your old friend that you don't like anymore, and sometimes he shows up as your granddad. Anyway, sometimes he does things just for the shock value, for the play, for the whatever, the manipulation upon manipulation, and the inner struggle that he really is going through between the halves of himself. It's fascinating. He's too smart most of the time. Unfortunately, he's going to find out the thing that all the shards have found out, which is that the power has a will of its own. So you as the vessel, you can be the smartest person around, but that power and you're supposed to be the intent, but the power will develop an intent, right? It will push you. And I think that's what we see at the end when Dalinar is goading him essentially into taking up honor. He knows he can't resist it. He knows that this is Taravangian can think whatever he wants, but the power wants power. And Taravangian needs power to accomplish things. So he's not going to be able to resist in this moment the victorious, dominating moment. He's not going to be able to resist it, no matter what his mind says. Even if there's a piece of Taravangian that's going, this might not be the best idea. That side of him is not going to win very often anymore because of the shard that he is. So I thought that was pretty clever, pretty darn clever. More about that specific moment in a little bit. Venli and the listeners are less prominent than I expected. A small tribe like they are can't really make big moves boldly, so I understand that. Makes them a little less interesting, but they pulled off an amazing switcheroo there for the coalition. It's important to remember they essentially, based on what I'm reading, what I'm getting, and again, I read Blaze through this, they control the land where Odium's well of power is. The listeners do. And Odium's going to be pissed. But anyway, that's. I love that L was like, all right, you won it fair and square. Good job, guys. Clever. So for a small group of people who don't have a lot of ability to affect things, they sure did affect one of the most potentially important things for the back half of the series. It's not the most well integrated part of the story. Like the way the 5-book arc is crafted, you would think the listeners would be a hell of a lot more important than that. But I assume we're just sort of subverting them until later. We keep playing the game where certain things have to go into the back and they can't be at the forefront right now. So they're not going to be. That's okay. I do miss Leshwi in the sky. It was sad to see Leshwi sort of brought low. I understand it. She's learned some things, but I think it's okay to miss that. And I think it's okay to miss Kaladin flying around and spearing things and being the character we fell in love with. Yes, they're going to evolve. Sometimes they'll evolve into things we don't necessarily love as much. Zeph and Nightblood are next. Nightblood stole every single scene he was in. I didn't even care what Zeph was thinking or feeling. I cared what Nightblood was saying. Nightblood was spectacular. All right, guys. Sorry, I gotta stop again so I can let my dog in because he won't stop barking. All right. Sorry again. What are you gonna do, dog? Anyway, so back to Zeph and Nightblood. Oh, um, Zeph threw that spoon at Ox. That was the funniest part in the book. I think that might have been it. It was so hilarious. Comedy gold. And upon reread, like when I reread this, I think Zeph's flashbacks will be tedious to read. But on the first read, it was a break for me. I was like, oh, thank God, a Zeth chapter. I know what's going to happen. There's going to be some slow moments where Kaladin tries to therapy him. Then he's going to be talking to Nail, and Nail's going to tell him to shut up and get back to the way he used to be. And his friend's going to be mean to him, and he's going to fight somebody or have a challenge. That's going to be the Zeth chapter. And we're going to flash back to when he was a kid. Uh, the flashbacks, specifically the flashback to when he was a youth, I just feel like we didn't need all that. But I'm glad we got it. It's good context for him. And I think people who struggled with authority and what it means to follow are going to really appreciate the Zeth chapters. Not to break the world up into followers and leaders, because we're all both in some capacity. But I have a friend who very much does not, she finds decisions very stressful and she doesn't like being in a leadership role. Um, but she often is in a leadership role, but she doesn't want to be in a leadership role. Um, it makes her uncomfortable and she just would rather have a set of rules to follow. And when I read Zeth, that's what I think about, is all the people for whom that is true, that they don't want to be the, they just want to know what is the right thing to do so they can do it. And I don't think that's wrong. I just think it's a shame because it's such a, in a way, it's a naive point of view for him, not for people in real life. But I mean, for him, it is because he clings so desperately to it and he can't seem to break this, um, break through that. And it just, he hits his head against the same wall over and over and over and over. And even his father is very similar. Um, it's sad. It's repetitive sometimes, but it's thought provoking. What would it be like to be that kind of a person? How difficult would it be? Even an added layer of difficulty to be so literal about everything. Oh, anyway, I love his unique relationship with his family. I like that his father supported him and his mother left the family. That was great to me because I thought, oh, this is going to be, it's such a different dynamic than so many other stories. Love it when a person is not afraid to say, the woman just said screw this and left and gave up on it and refused to do this anymore. Because I think that says a lot about her and also says a lot about the situation and um just that we don't have to go down the exact same road of relationship roles that's always been gone down where the man leaves the family and blah 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 blah. It's her. It was the mom. She's like, nah, I'm not doing this. I'm out. Um, very interesting. Um, I also got I thought it was sweet that Sophrena starts to understand Zeth a little bit, empathize, try to empathize with him, and that she helps him, and that he asks for her help, and that or accepts it anyway, and that Kaladin kind of comes to understand Szeth a little bit and says, okay, we need to make sure he gets through this and that he doesn't have to be bound to these rules that have crushed him and these the self-worth problem that he has, like the psychology of choice, what it means to choose, to be free to choose. I thought that was wonderful, just brilliant. And what irks me is that the moments of the really overt therapy undercut that. They undercut they totally undercut that Szeth and Kaladin could have had these conversations without that. The anyway, I maybe I'm not putting that very well. I'll have to think about it. I'm not always good out loud. I'm better in writing, so maybe if I can find a way to write it down, it'll make more sense. The story of the Wandersail with Nail was great. Okay, Renarin and Relaine. It was cute. That was I enjoyed the pairing. It made sense. But I think and they will be an odd couple for Roshar, a groundbreaking one, of course, in several ways. But I enjoyed Renarin's perspective more than I enjoyed their relationship. Their relationship is, it's cute, but it's like sprinkles on top of a dessert. It's not the whole dessert. Um, Renarin's perspective was unexpected. I did not see it coming. That we would uh, get a little of his childhood and a little bit of his alienation and the way he feels compared to Adolin and Dalinar and the way who he wants to be and how angry he is at the humans when even Relaine is like, well, and Renarin's like, no, F them. Us, we're the bad guys. Nobody y'all hate us. Um, Renarin's very black and white about certain things, which fascinates me, very open to others. Uh, I love that they specified the stained glass window effect of his visions of the future is his construct. Cool as so cool. That's much cooler than it just being, well, that's the way they look because this is Roshar, so there you go. No, it's the way he sees things. He would prefer the barrier. Of course you would, because this is like vision land and you're getting hit with all these damn visions. You don't even know what the hell's going on. It's terrifying. But just the type of probably more or less artistic person that he is, to put a barrier between him and the sensation, where he can deliberately approach the scenario in Windows and say, okay, this is one possibility. Got it. Here's another one. And it's not so overwhelming. Just so cool. What a great way of personifying that, or not personifying, imagery. The imagery is lovely on more than one level. Just great. I don't think they're a terribly realistic couple, like for the long run, but they will be because this is Sanderson. He can make whatever he wants. They deserve happiness. I just don't see like their acceptance of one another cannot be all of it, right? We're gonna have to see more, find out what else is there because acceptance alone and mutual understanding, like trauma bonding alone, is not a relationship make. Um, let's see, Dalinar. Oh my God, Dalinar is such a dynamic character to read about. I mean, his there's such depth to Dalinar, and he never seems to quit finding new depth. There's more. There's always more to Dalinar than you realize there is, and it's so special to have that in this flawed, formerly warlord who exterminated people, turned radiant, who cares, who's trying, who wants the world to be better, who wants men to be better, who wants these conflicts to end, who wants, has a sense of honor and justice and all of these things that are he didn't have. He didn't always have, but he has them now. And it's really cool. That journey was spectacular. And for it to end the way it did, I was cheering as soon as he took up the shard of honor. I came out of my chair and went, yes! And I was like doing a happy dance and the whole thing. And then for him to immediately turn around and break it, I went, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. I was like, I bet I sat there with my mouth hanging open, drooling on the paper. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that. For Dalinar really to be perhaps look, the genius of what happens there isn't, it's not it's not the destination, it's the journey that was genius. Because the only way Dalinar could have become the person required to make this decision, to, in this order, ascend, break the oath, and then unleash retribution deliberately into the Cosmere, he would have to be the person who understood the bindings of an oath, what an oath means. He would have to understand, he personally endured the remnant of honor in the Stormfather, to know what its limitations are, what its biases are, what it tends to do, how it acts, how it reacts, right? So that all that's going on in his head when he realizes what the play needs to be. What's, this is the ball that needs to be tossed to Odium. It had to be someone who failed, who picked himself up, who failed again, who wasn't afraid of failure, wasn't afraid of being a hypocrite. He wasn't afraid of, but who knew opponents and strategy, who knew what tempted Taravangian, who trusts in the future and the radiance, who really does give a shit, someone with the ability to let go, to say this situation is not one for me to solve. I can't solve it. Someone who saw through Honor's eyes, who could understand and forgive gods, people who became gods, someone who speaks the language of pain and power and has all of that. Like, if you could not have had that situation where he's facing Taravangian Odium and Gavinor and make the decisions he made, that's the journey that I think was just, it blew me away. It blew me away. I would never have seen that coming. That's a decision I would never have thought this series would have ended on. That series of decisions was crazy. But when you look at everything Dalinar is, it explains the decision. Wow. I also love that Wit did not appreciate it right away, because of course Wit is thinking about isolating Odium. That's all he cares about, is isolating Odium for the good of the Cosmere, and Dalinar doesn't give a shit about, he does care about the Cosmere, but Dalinar's like, look, I can't fix this problem, and I'm now looking at a bunch of shards who could fix this situation. I can't do it. Maybe they can. Let's give them some time. Let's buy the Radiance some time. Let's prevent Taravangian from having the perfect setup that he wants, that he craves, that he thinks he has. Let's take that from him. And yes, we unleash something horrible, but we know it's going to bind him. We know what fledgling honor is going to do. We're going to plant the seed that, okay, little honor, go learn something. It's time to go learn. You're right. You and I would have got along fine, but you want him. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. Go learn something. Because, and it's funny in the end, I wish Adolin and Dalinar could have had a conversation because I think Dalinar realized what Adolin has been saying all this time, which is that a promise can be more important in some ways than an oath because it can be broken. So you have to have faith that it won't be, not a guarantee, faith that it won't be. And I think Dalinar sees this whole situation is that, like, Honor is going to learn that lesson. And meanwhile, he's going to prevent Odium from doing a lot of things. I just, oh, how I cheered when Taravangian picked up Honor. I was like, you are an idiot. You power hungry, stupid fool. And all the other shards in the Cosmere just go, the fuck was that? In my mind, they all just turn to look at him. Like, yes. Take that, everybody else in the Cosmere. Now you can't ignore it anymore. I went realizing that I think was so fun. This Sunmaker's Gambit indeed. That was so cool. All right, what do we got? What else do I have here? Oh, why not? We'll just list them off here. Plot beats that I cheered and yelled out loud for. Kaladin and Zeth, all the badassery. I still love it when Kaladin is about to fight or we think he's gonna fight or he does fight. Anytime he grabs the spear, I'm happy. Taravangian taking up Honor. What a dumbass. I talked about a lot of this already. Adolin, I did, even though it was unrealistic. I cheered so much when Adolin was kicking that guy's ass. Oh, so great. Cheer a little for Yanagong. Yay! Getting him into the castle. You know how I didn't include in all this was Lift. And the Lift Vasher scene. That was another one that I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. And Vasher just being like, you are awesome. Lift's like, I suck. I'm terrible. I can't do anything. And he's like, you need a teacher, kid. You're amazing. I loved it. I love that someone looked at Lift and saw potential and refused, and like that she found it in herself to stop and acknowledge it. That she doesn't have to do this by herself. Oh, so good. That moment just made my heart sing. When Taln awakens and fights, I went, whoa, shit. Wish we could have seen more of that. That was woo, that, amazing. Let's see. We talked about the spoon thing. Oh yeah, the wit. When wit turns into baloney mist, I had a panic attack, and then thank God they resurrected him right there. Freaked me out. But his whole thing right after that, his whole speech that he gives, his little monologue or dialogue with whoever, wherever he's at, loved that. I'm sorry I can't give details. I don't remember right now. I'm gonna have to go read it again. Two emotions for me were pervasive throughout the entire book. That was shock and anticipation. Not shock because everything was a surprise, because some things were not. Chanarach was pretty, I knew about that was going to happen, and I think everybody predicted Gav would be the champion. Especially when we figured out time, how time works in the spiritual realm. Nobody was, and that Gav was tampered with the entire book. It was clearly going to be Gav. I almost panicked whenever they're like, Elokar? When Dalinar sees him for the first time, I was like, oh, that's Elokar. I was like, what? It's at the end of a chapter, and I was like, being trolled by Brandon here. Like, course it's Gavin. And then when it's revealed that it's Gavin, it's like, thank God, at least it makes more sense than Elokar. Maybe that was intentional to like cushion the blow. If you didn't want a child champion, maybe that would change your mind or throw you off just enough to make you accept Gav as the champion. I don't know. But I never would have figured out the Chanarach thing without Lost in Roshar until they started harping on her red hair in this particular story. Oh, that Shallan's mother was at her wedding. Oh, so sad and sweet. I do want to say one more thing about Shallan. I loved that she wanted to relive her wedding, that she wanted to be more present, that she wanted to be herself, her purest self for it. She wanted to live it, to see it. And she had to remind herself that it's okay to want that. It's okay to want to be you. Amazing. I loved it. Let's see. Oh, and I still maintain that there's a missed opportunity with Yasna. I understand you had to maybe give her something to do, bring her lower, allow her to fail so she can get over herself and get through the parts of her philosophy that are not going to work out for her long term. But the whole odium solution, retribution solution, like, fine, let's release him into the Cosmere. I feel like that's a Yasna solution. I said that earlier. So I'm sad she didn't get even a part of that one. If I had been writing it, I think I would have enabled Yasna to communicate a small piece of that somehow or plant that seed with Dalinar. And that when Dalinar goes for it, that's why. But I see also how that's not really appropriate given Dalinar's the perfect person to make that choice. Slightly better than Yasna, I guess. There's no more Stormlight, so Adolin is not getting that foot back. Damn, that is terrible. Guy just can't catch a break, you know? But he's done something no one else could do, and that's bring around the Deadeyes. No idea what's going on with the Deadeyes, but that was freaking sick whenever they just whenever he's like, here, pick up your shards, and they're like, what? And they're like, here, arm yourselves. They just show up. The Deadeyes show up. And that wasn't really even Aylin's intention. That was so cute. He's like, oh, are you bringing the honor sprint? She's like, honor sprint? And she didn't say it, but like, fuck those guys. What do you? That's the impression I got from Maya. Screw those guys. She went and got her friends. Somebody could actually do something. Apologies to Notum because Notum showed up in a big way, and I appreciate Notum being there. As weird as that was, for Notum to be substantial enough to wear armor, that was another surprise. That's got to be hinting at something for the future, but right now I can't conceive of what it is. I'm too fresh off of the high of just knowing what happens in the story to precisely pick out threads of seeds that he's planting for the next arc. But that was something. Man, poor Roshar. Even just that room with candlelight at the end, I was like, ooh, this is not going to be a very fun place for a while. And to be in a time bubble on top of everything else. Man. What's Odium gonna do? Retribution. Sorry. It's gonna take a little getting used to again, calling him Retribution. I wonder if Honor will like latch onto one of Taravangian's halves, but not the other half, and let's pull him apart. And then Okay, for the final thing that maybe not the final thing to talk about, but one thing I want to talk about before I go to bed is cultivation. My cultivation theory appears to be dead. However, I need to do a closer reread because there were 2 or 3 instances where I saw word choices that suggested otherwise. And for those of you who don't know, my cultivation theory was that she is malevolent and that she's got a play for the Cosmere, like so many shards do. Hers being more indirect than others. That's what I thought was going on prior to reading this story. Now, with added context, it seems as though cultivation was sincerely trying to get Taravangian to be. She seems genuinely horrified when he destroys Kharbranth. Destroys Kharbranth. Quotes, because he's a coward and he couldn't do that either, because that's what started it all. I knew he wasn't going to be. I was shocked when he did it, and then when it was reversed, I went, "Oh well, he loved that. He loved those people. He's not supposed to, but he does. Um, he can't separate that much from himself, I guess. But he put on a good show for her. I wonder how much of a show she's putting on for him. Part of me says, okay, yeah, she tried, she failed, she tried, she failed. She played the long game, she failed, and then when he became retribution, she fled. I just don't know that that's the whole story. Because how many of you got the same feeling I did several times that she's not making the situation better? For a shard who everyone assumes is the good person, she's not helping very much. What she's doing is what I have a part of me still suspects what Ray's said was true. You know, sometimes authors will plant the truth in the mouth of somebody you don't trust at all so that you will disregard it and whatever it for later and misconstrue it. But I believe it was Ray's when he said that cultivation doesn't care about people. Cultivation cares about capacity and making sure that that people reach their potential, that the potential of a thing is reached. She doesn't care about the human or the entity, the singer, the whatever. She doesn't care about that at all. She cares about the that thing reaching its ultimate potential as much as possible. And if that's the case, let's think about that for a second, because that's exactly what she does with Dalinar. She makes her pruning of him to ensure that I mean, and in the end, is Dalinar not the most Dalinar version of himself, right? He reaches his potential. He could have been fucking Honor. He was for a couple of seconds. Um, that was his ultimate potential. And she ensured that he would reach that. And Taravangian, she picked Taravangian to succeed to Odia. All right? She handpicked the worst possible candidate, the the odiumest odium who could ever be to be odium, and then egged him on in this book. I still feel like she egged him on. I'm sorry. I guess I'm wrong. But there's still a piece of me that is like, did she just play Taravangian against himself to make him the perfect odium and then flee? And people will be saying, Chelsea, why would she do that? That doesn't make sense. Well, because the power wants things. The power is corrupting the vessel. And maybe Corvellium Avast was a lovely person. It seems like her and Honor had a lovely relationship. But let's not forget that Honor ditched her for 400 years to go fight Odium. What I'm positing is, what if during those 400 years, Corvellium Avast and the power just said, screw it. You know, if this goes poorly, we're just in it for ourselves now. And what we'll do is we will create a scenario where we can bend Odium to do what we want. And if what we want is for Odium to get out of this system and destroy the rest of the Cosmere, and then we can pull the plug on him, that would be ideal. It would be ideal to engineer a scenario where Odium is powerful enough to get off this system, to destroy some other shards, so that I don't have to, but then I have a failsafe and I can pull the plug on him when I need to. So for now, I'll leave Roshar. I just find the whole Mother Roshar, uh, oh, I just happen to have the Night Watcher who just happens to be the least human. I didn't like, remember how she looked at Honor and said, look, I like all of these things we made, but they're too human-y. Can we make something not human-y? I'm like, I don't know exactly what the Night Watcher is, but I know that it's sus, and I think cultivation is potentially sus. Even though my theory took a big blow. I'll be back with more on that. I'm gonna dig into the text. Hopefully get it on Kindle here soon so I can search for certain words, because there was a word at the end of a Taravangian chapter somewhere that said like growth or something. And I just stuck on the word and went, every time there's a cultivation-y word, I'm like, is this being manipulated? He was manipulated, wasn't he? Because he sure is speaking the language of the cultivation all of a sudden, even though he's full of shit. Anyway, well, more on that later. But it appears my fan theory is dead. I think it took a major hit, but I'm not out of the game. I don't think I'm totally out of the game yet. Tell me what you think. Light up the comments. Maybe I'm just crazy, or wishful thinking that this is going to be darker than I expected it to be with regards to one of the female shards. I would love to see a shard that we think is benevolent based on what the shard is turn not so benevolent, maybe malevolent on some level. All right, let's see if there's anything else I want to say about Wind and Truth. That was my first reaction, my first impressions of it. Overall, I thought it was wonderful. What a thriller. I think he wrote Sunlit Man as preparation for this book, for the speed and velocity and like destination of this book, just taken off to an ending at that kind of speed. I still absolutely love Kaladin, but the one weakness of this book, it wasn't Kaladin, because I cheered for him and I always want to know what he's doing and I want him to do well. But the weakest part of this book and the challenge going forward will be the therapy stuff with him, because how much of that do you want to read? Is that what you want your fantasy to be about? Not just as a function of the magic and how the magic works, but as a driving narrative, like a reason for your character to exist. Is that enough? Is it enough that one of your characters is a therapist now and they're going to fix everybody, or try to? I don't know that it is. So good thing Brandon's got a pause. He's got some time to think about how and where and why. And I'm sure he has plenty of reasons for what he's doing. He thinks further ahead than I ever have. But I guess if I had a criticism, that would be it. Um, I don't typically like the heroine got pregnant because we don't know what else to do with her thing either. But Shallan is an interesting choice to go through a pregnancy. And now that she's one and whole, uh, I guess it adds a little drama to her journey that she'll be taking. And I really don't know what she'll be doing. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up because I think I'm rambling at this point. If I think of anything else, I'll do a part two. It'll be a short part two because I think I covered just about everything here. But you always miss something in a book this size. The Visions by Ado Mishram, we got almost we only got in flashback who and what Ba Ado Mishram actually is, the recreants. I can't believe I didn't touch on any of that in this video, but really it speaks for itself. I don't have much to say other than that was very well written, and I hadn't guessed most of it. And Ba Ado Mishram, prior to being backstabbed by Malishi, um, seemed all right. I could see Tanavast's perspective, though, that, you know, people are flawed and falling to odium, and this has to end. Bad decisions were made by every possible entity. But I can see where they arrived at some of the decisions they arrived at. That Windrunner, they got blamed for everything. Um, and the singer that he was in love with, that was a little bit weak too. I feel like the why is it always like the Romeo and Juliet story? Everything comes back to that. Uh, yeah, I know it's a tropey thing that is all right. If we're gonna do romance, let's do romance. Let's not do, I don't know, just the cliche. That felt a little cliche. But I guess, cliches exist for a reason. What else? Malishi himself, what a piece of work. Eric over at the 17th shard. I hope he's doing okay because we didn't get any post-release of Ba Ado Mishram Fallout whatsoever, except, there ain't no Stormlight. Um, but that's not because of her, that's because of Stormfather and all that going away. We may have the Storm Mother in still eventually, right? I think that could be where some of this is going or headed. And I think that's everything I've got to say for now. More later, but it was a wonderful book, and I'm so glad we get to talk about it now and hash it out and have a reread upon listening. I'll start the Michael Kramer, Kate Redding version maybe in a week or so. I need some time to recover, but it was so fun. I so looked forward to it, and I needed this book so badly. It's really needed it, and I think I will meditate on the philosophies of this story for a while now. And not that like, oh, therapy is important. Surface level, but like the psychology of choice, philosophy of justice versus honor, um, the inherent evil, I guess, tendencies within mankind, but also great capacity for turning it around unexpectedly. If anybody can do it, if Dalinar can do it, anybody can do it. Except maybe Moash. God, I hate that guy. God, I hate that guy. It's just the worst. Yeah, that's how we should leave this. It is as it has ever been. Fuck Moash. That didn't change. And we didn't get a Moash conflict. Damn. Fucking, why didn't we just end him? I'm so tired of Moash. Oh well. I guess he's still a tool to be wielded by the author whenever we need to hate someone so bad we can't stand it anymore. That okay, for real. I'm cutting it off now. Y'all have a good night. I hope you enjoyed this review. Ta ta for now. Till next time. And